Today we're going to talk about the land of South Asia. South Asia is mostly made up of India. So if we take a quick look at our Google Earth, right here's India. India is known as a subcontinent. A subcontinent is part of a continent, a smaller part of a continent. And the reason why it's a subcontinent is because it's really on the Indian plate. So if we think about tectonic plates, you can kind of see the outline of the plate here. This plate moves north, and it's basically crashing into the Asian plate, and that's why the Himalayas have formed. So this is a subcontinent. India is a subcontinent. Surrounded by three large bodies of water, so the Arabian Sea to the west, the Indian Ocean to the south, and the Bay of Bengal, which is the world's largest bay, to the east. So you have India, you have the Arabian Sea, which is next to the Arabian Peninsula, the Bay of Bengal, and then the Indian Ocean. When we talk about South Asia, we're talking about this region that includes India, Pakistan, Bhutan and Nepal, and Bangladesh. So this region, about 6 countries, and Sri Lanka down here. And of South Asia, about 75% of that land belongs to India. South Asia includes the countries I just mentioned: India, Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, and Pakistan. And the Himalayas serve as a natural barrier. So they were formed about 60 million years ago when East Africa broke loose and drifted northward. And this plate then collided with the Asian plate, forming the Himalayan mountains. They are about 1,000 miles long, 100 miles wide. And what they have done is created a natural barrier between India and the rest of the world. So if we zoom in a little bit, the Himalayan mountains, if I hover over it, you can see that green outline. So those are the Himalayas. Just north of this is the Tibetan Plateau. You see this really dry area because the Himalayas block the wind. So when the winds come from the south, the Himalayas block those winds, and what you're left with is a rain shadow. So you have a fairly dry area through here. Those are the Himalayas. If you wanted to find Mount Everest, you would find right here the border of Nepal and China. And here it is, Mount Everest. So this is the tallest peak in the world. You zoom in a little bit more, you can see some of that detail, right? So mountains aren't like you drew them as a kid, where they're straight up. There's a lot of low-lying areas, and then you ascend other peaks. So about 30,000 feet tall for Mount Everest. Again, located right there on the border of Nepal and China. West of the Himalayas, you have the Hindu Kush Mountains. So if you come over here, you have the Himalayas. These mountains that are to the west are the Hindu Kush. They form a border between India and Pakistan. There's a low-lying area there called the Khyber Pass, and that's been an area that has traditionally allowed passage between those two countries. For the rivers, the Indus and the Ganges are the main rivers. So the Indus River is in Pakistan, so don't be fooled by that thinking it's in India. The Indus River right through here, this green area, is the Indus River. The Ganges River flows here in northern India. So these were two rivers that hopefully were in your physical geography notes. And the Ganges area is particularly important. About 1/10 of the world's population lives in this northern area. And the Ganges plain, where the Ganges River is an alluvial plain. So it's made up of soil deposited by rivers, and it makes these river plains excellent for farming. So the Ganges plain is this low-lying area here at the foot or the base of the Himalayan mountains, and that's where about 1/10 of the world's population lives. The Deccan Plateau, along with the Eastern and Western Ghats, form a triangle down here. So you have the Eastern Ghats, which are mountains, the Western Ghats, and the Deccan Plateau is in the middle. Deccan just generally means south, so that's how it got its name. The Deccan Plateau lies between the two Ghats. It's caused by volcanic activity, and mountains block the rain, so the area there is pretty dry. For climates of South Asia, it's very important that you understand the term monsoon. Monsoon is nothing more than a seasonal wind that changes direction. So what that means is when you hear about a monsoon rain, a heavy rain is not a monsoon. The monsoon in the summer months comes June to early October, and the wind blows across the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean and picks up moisture, and it brings a great deal of rain to India. So when the wind is starting here over this warm body of water, it picks up moisture and moves this way. And as it moves this way and encounters these elevations, the air becomes colder, it can't hold moisture, and it rains. The problem with these monsoon rains is as more and more water comes into the Ganges, here at the mouth of the Ganges River in Bangladesh, Bangladesh often suffers terrible flooding. It's a very low-lying area. It's very heavily populated, and that can really cause some significant tragedy in that country. The winter monsoons, on the other hand, come from central China. So the winds change direction in the winter months, and this is a cold, dry wind. So during the winter monsoons, the wind actually starts in China. Remember, this is the Gobi Desert right up here in Mongolia, one of the coldest deserts in the world. So in the summer months, the wind comes from the wet ocean. Obviously, the ocean's wet. It comes this way. During the summer or the winter months, it comes from China. This is a pretty high latitude, so the wind, this area is pretty cold, and it's a cold, dry wind that comes across the Himalayas and comes here. So the winter monsoon is dry, the summer monsoon is wet. For land use in South Asia, about 70% of the population lives in rural areas, meaning they do not live in a city. They live maybe in a village or in the country. Cash crops, the definition of a cash crop is a crop that is produced for sale. And the economy can become dependent on a single cash crop, which makes them dependent on world prices. So if the price of that good falls in the world, then that country doesn't make as much money. Tea, cotton, coffee, and sugarcane are all grown in South Asia, and so those are the cash crops for South Asia. Iron ore and coal are also plentiful. And those are the mineral resources available throughout South Asia. Copper, limestone, copper, and bauxite. Again, bauxite is a metal that is used to make aluminum. These are also plentiful. This region does not produce much crude oil, so they don't have that as an income stream. To power India, they primarily rely on hydroelectricity. And this area is one of the most densely populated regions on Earth. Most people live in coastal areas in northeastern India and Bangladesh.